Hello and welcome to another episode of Grimshaw's Tavern. Tonight I'm riding solo, um, which is nothing wrong with that. It's always you got to do that every once in a while. Um, but yeah, so tonight's episode is going to be initially it was going to be about the world of uh, Royal Croya, Rogue Croya. Sorry, getting my own world name messed up. But I'm actually going to change the subject around a little bit. Tonight, it's going to be about clerics and healing. But more importantly, the missing of clerics from my campaign setting at the current time. And why I chose to go that route. So let's start by addressing the fact that clerics are a core campaign, core class to any campaign, really. Everybody wants to have a cleric in the party, but nobody wants to play the cleric because they're always considered to be your healers. So 5e changed it around a little bit, and I still feel like they're more martial. But anyway, I'm getting away from my own subject here. So when I was coming up with the concept for the Pernicious Chronicles campaign setting, I wanted it to feel different, and I decided to give it that gritty survival feel that I'm going for with the current campaign. I decided to actually take clerics out, and I was thinking of a lot of different ways I could do this, and that's why the deities, if anybody's like keeping up with everything, that's why the deities kind of disappeared, and there's a whole storyline for that, and that's for another day. But the gist of it is they went away, and roughly 600 years after they went away, the last, I guess you could say, faithful person died, and with them the knowledge of the faith of the true deities. So that was pretty much like when the last cleric lived. So then you fast forward a little bit, and I say a little bit, it's a couple thousand years actually, to when the deities return. So during this time, there were no clerics, there were no priests, no any divine healer, so to speak. You do have druids, and you do have paladins, rangers, and there are other, like, bards can heal as well. But they're not as powerful as a cleric. So you're missing that big link there. So to give it that, like I said, to give the campaign that feel, I wanted to take clerics out, and people had to find healing elsewhere, because taking clerics out also took out the majority of, like, healing potions and healing wands and things like that. So they had to find sources elsewhere. And to address that, one of the things that I changed around a little bit was kind of like the way you heal from a long rest as well, because I want my players to kind of like ration out their supplies. I want them to not, not rely on specific rules. For instance, player's handbook says whenever you take a long rest, that the player heals all of their hit points. So I had an issue with this because it kind of replaces clerics, so I kind of limited it that. And then I'll get to that in a second, because it actually also rolls over into rations, like how much food intake you have, how much water intake you have. So I kind of combined them because I wanted that to be something that the players thought about, their resources. Because you watch a lot of campaigns, or you read about a lot of campaigns, and the rules are there, the rations are there, the resources are there, but they don't really use them. It's kind of, well, most people don't. Some people do. Some people are like really big sticklers on it. But I wanted to use it in my campaign. So I took that idea and I pretty much like halved it. So I'm gonna pull this up real quick if I can, and we'll talk about it real quick. So if you go to the website, the perniciouschronicles.com, there's a lot of different things on there that I'm adding a bunch of stuff, but I do have some things about the rules. So how does rationing affect your natural healing? One of the things is, like, if you take a long rest and you take a day's rations, instead of getting your full hit points back, you'll get half your maximum hit points back. So let's say you're down to 20, but your maximum is 100, you'll get 50, so you'll bump up to 70. It's not as powerful as like completely healed, because I do have a little bit of an issue with that. You know, say for instance you fall down a pit and you take, 80 damage out of 100 because you broke a leg or something, like that. You can't heal that in a day. So I'm not trying to make a fantasy realistic, but I want it to be more gritty, a gritty feel than that. So to also go with that, if you go by the player's handbook rules, you get all of your hit dice back, and you can use your hit dice during your short rest to heal. It's kind of like a healing potion, but free. So instead of giving you all of your hit dice back, I decided to do like half your hit dice. So if you had 10, going off with the whole 100 hit points thing, if you had 10 hit dice, and let's say on a short rest you used, or throughout the adventure you use half of them, so you had 5 left, you'll be able to get those 5 back. So you'll start out the next day with 10 hit dice. But if you had 0, then you go back up to 5. So it still limits you with your resources, because I just don't want to be like, okay, you used all your resources, here they are again, if you take a long rest. So that's kind of my reasoning behind that. But that's if you have a whole day's rations. Well, what if you have a half day's rations? So my idea is to limit it even more. So instead of a half, you get a quarter back. A quarter of your maximum hit points, or a quarter of your hit dice. And. Well, what if you take a long rest and don't eat any rations? Then you only get 1 hit point back, and you get 1 hit dice back. I did this because I wanted rations to be important. I wanted them, if they're on a long voyage or a long journey through a forest, I wanted them to make sure they had, packed enough, and make sure they could find the resources. So that's, one of the things I wanted to integrate into the campaign. So then to answer the question about druids, because druids also have like things like good berries and stuff like that. So yes, that is a possibility if you want to go that route. Rangers have foraging for food, so and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. So I'm trying to think. So if we go in the regards to healing, so that's one aspect of healing. The other is healing potions. So clearly, if you take away the clerics healing potions, or there's other avenues. Like I said, you have druids, you have rangers. They have healing that can still use their magic to heal, and there's nothing wrong with that. Had a mouse curse on me. So the other thing is, I decided to go the route of like herbalist healing potions. So instead of having a standard cure light wounds or cure heal or any of those things, I had it to where, and they're in a lot of campaigns, but I wanted, once again, instead of just giving them to the players or having them go out to a shop and buy them, I wanted them to give something like they're out wandering around. Oh, they see a herb or an herb. can they use that for anything? So I wanted to integrate all of that and have them start looking for these things, because it to me, it makes them part of the world. And I feel like sometimes it can be a little mundane, but at the same time, it's good storytelling. Because life isn't always about running out and slaying monsters and getting treasure, especially not in this campaign. If you've kept up with any of it, treasure doesn't really have any value. So this gives them another like reward type thing. There are healing potions they can find, but anyway, I have a chart, and it's kind of based off of some of the rules, and then there's some homebrew stuff thrown in. And actually, I can't even remember. I've read a bunch of different ones online, homebrew rules and stuff, but the one that stuck with me was having whoever's making the potion roll skill checks. And if you're really into crafting and stuff, there's some good guides out there for that stuff. And maybe down the line, I'll do a Grimshaw's Tavern about recipes and all that kind of fun stuff, because I have a good one. But basically, they gather all the ingredients, and then they do their herbalist check. And depending on how good of a check it is, it grants them like a potion of healing, or greater healing, superior, or supreme healing. And they each do their respective hit points. So a standard potion of healing would do 2d4 plus 2. Greater healing 4d4 plus 4. Wow, that's a lot of 4s. Superior does 8d4 plus 8. And then the supreme is 10d4 plus 20. So it's not necessarily imbuing it with magic. It's taking the ingredients and relying on the player's skill to create the healing potion. So I feel that was sort of a good replacement for that. And that kind of falls under the stereotype that clerics are only for healing, but they're not. So to touch on that a little bit more, another thing that clerics are known for are turning and rebuking undead. Well, how do you handle this if you don't have all that in your campaign? You don't. You have some of the paladin abilities, but turning and rebuking, you don't. You come up against an undead horde, you just have to fight them. That's what people have done for thousands of years without clerics. So I guess there's no good replacement for that, even though you could probably make a magic item. But in the TPC universe, especially in like the main campaign, you have the Lyceum, in anything they perceive as a threat, or anything that's they consider like not a potent magical item. Yeah, I guess you could say potent magical item. They'll basically come in and swoop up and take it. So any of those that would exist, they probably have in their possession or somewhere stashed, just because that's what they do. So I think, let's look at something. So if you go off of let's look at the recipe for a second. I can't bring it up. Let's do this. I found this. I can't even remember where I found it. It says 5e homebrew created by Titanic Folly. So let's go with Titanic Folly. I like the way this is set up. And then I can actually bring something else up too, as far as the recipe that I created. It's kind of funny. Let me pull this up. Screen. Nope. Yep. Aha. Okay. All right. So let's look at this for a second. Make it a little bit larger so you guys can see it. All right. So it does have things like the GP and stuff for materials and all that. But more importantly, what I'm looking at is the checks and the types of potions that you can make. And then it goes on to talk about attempting and all that stuff. And then also it limits you per level, so you can't have a first level character coming out and making supreme healing potions. So it does a good job of balancing. So actually, if you look at the chart at the bottom down here, it even says that you can't make a supreme until level 11. But the good thing is that like level 3 you can start making greater healing potions, so it scales. So that's a good thing. And I guess even if you had clerics, this would be a good alternative if you didn't even have one in your group, or if you wanted to introduce like creatures in the wildlands or tribes and stuff like that. They could always use this as an alternative. And it's kind of what I did with the campaign, because the part of the world that they're in is, I described it in the last Grimshaw's Tavern as being like this, pretty much wildlands compared to the rest of the world. Not saying that nothing else is wild in the other world, or the rest of the world, but it's more civilized than what they know because it's almost cut off from the rest of the world. It's separated by mountains and huge open plains that, oh yeah, I need to talk about that one. Maybe that'd be the next Grimshaw's Tavern, the Kingdom of Sarat, which is the flatlands. I had some great ideas for monsters and stuff in there. Yeah, just a prelude to it. Let's do this. Goblins on giant ostriches. What do you think? I thought about that. I was thinking, because like a typical goblin rides a warg. Well, what's something different? Let's put them on the back of an ostrich. Yeah, I think that would be pretty intimidating. It's not a warg, but it's a giant ostrich. Anyway, that was one idea I had for that. So I might do a Grimshaw's Tavern on that coming up in the near future. So so getting back to the healing potion, that would probably be a good alternative to clerics, in my opinion. And not having clerics in the campaign hasn't been a big issue so far. I don't think. I think the biggest issue is going to be if I decide to reintroduce them, because I reintroduced the deities. I say reintroduced. I introduced them, even though it's reintroduced to the world. So at some point, there might be some kind of quest or something out there that has to go down. Thinking about that now. That'll probably be a good one. But yeah, let's see what else we can get into. Let's remove that. Nah. All right. Oh yeah. So short rest still applies. I did say that one. So you can still use your hit dice to recover lost hit points. But once again, those are your resources. So you got to spend them wisely, especially in the upcoming couple of episodes. Actually, the players are going to be going through this tower. It's actually the Lyceum Tower, because they're at a weakened state right now, and instead of going after the original artifact they were going for, they decided to go straight at the Lyceum. So that's actually starting tomorrow, Wednesday, 7/26. Yeah, 7/26, August 26. No, wait, I'm July 26th. I'm a month. Yesterday I was a day, and today it's a month. Wow. So yeah, so that'll be tomorrow. I'm a little curious at how they're gonna handle this, because they haven't been put in a situation where they have to monitor their resources. Um, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a big fan, or even if I'm playing in a campaign, if I'm in a dangerous location, like a cave that I've just fought halfway through, I'm not going to stop and take a long rest. I mean, because let's be realistic here, something else is out there, and it's quite possible it's going to sneak up on you, even though, or it could be right in the same room. You have no idea. Um, so I know, since they haven't been put into this situation, they're probably going to rush in, guns blazing, burn up a lot of resources on the first couple of levels, and they still have like half this thing to go. So I'm curious. I'm wondering, healing is going to be a very important thing, and they don't have between them any healing potions, maybe one, and they don't have a healer per se, because they have the ranger who draws his power from nature, so he can heal, but he only can do it like what, 2-3 times. They're 4th level, and then he's out of spells. So what do you do then? Decisions. Do they stop? Do they spend hit dice? Because they have them all. They have 4 each. So it's like free hit points, or free healing potions. So that's one thing. If you go from like 3.5 to... I skipped over 4E, so I really don't know how the dynamics of 4E really worked. To 5th edition, actually, you didn't have that. Like you had to like break out your calculator to do hit points whenever you did a rest in 3.5, but then you come over to 5th edition, and it's just like, oh, you get them all back. Okay, let's cut that. Let's make our campaign a little bit more gritty. So yeah, I'm trying to think. I think that's pretty much all that I had on healing, and for the most part, I'm pretty sure there's some other things that's going to come up. As it stands, they haven't had any issues with finding rations. Whenever they go on long journeys, if they decide to cross mountains, stuff like that, there's a possibility. So that's going to be interesting too. And then you can throw in things like the weather. If you go to like a freezing climate, is it going to half that even more? Is it going to require double the rations? Or if you're going through a desert, double the amount of water you need to get all of that. So definitely things to think about. I don't know if you guys are like me when it comes to that kind of stuff, but to me, it makes it more of like an adventure feel versus a dungeon crawl, which they, like I said, they haven't gone through a dungeon yet. A dungeon crawl, like huge dungeon. That's what I'm thinking, not like a one shot or anything. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm ranting at this point. So I'm curious as to what you guys think about this, and if you have any ideas on that. If you do, go to the website, leave me a comment, shoot me an email, all that kind of fun stuff. Excuse me. One thing I do want to throw out is starting August 8th. Let me double check my calendar to make sure that's right. I do this every day. It's been a heck of a day. Yes, August 8th. Starting at 7 p.m. we're going to have a TPC Antecedents campaign startup. They're going to be taking the place of... Not taking the place. They're going to be... These adventures are going to be taking place in the past. So you have your TPC campaign that is technically the current time. I say current. It's the current time. So as they go along and you hear names or you hear about locations or things about lore or previous wars or just any kind of historic event, the players from that campaign are going to be going back and telling those stories. And to give you a good, it's going to be completely different. And this is why. So let's look at the Lyceum, for instance. On one hand, in the main campaign, or the current campaign, they are this all-powerful entity that is bound and determined to suppress everyone of power. So, and then you find out they actually started the Dragon Onslaught, murdered everyone, and just this really, really, really bad stuff. So, and then you find out that they're actually being controlled by a Mind Flayer. Going back at the very start of the Antecedents campaign, I'm actually going to start 2 years before the Dragon Onslaught, and you'll see a completely different world. You have, current campaign is gritty and dirty, and the economy is just in shambles. There's, just all this oppression. And then you go to the Antecedents campaign, and it's going to be this live and vibrant world where, the golden gems and all that stuff still has their value, and that's what people use as their currency. And then magic items are also more bountiful. So it's very likely that one of them will end up with one or two, or, who knows. But whereas in the current campaign, magic items are very rare. So you have that aspect. But then you go to look at the Lyceum, and my plan is to have characters that kind of overlap. So, for instance, you have Michael Versick, who in the current campaign was playing the role of Violent through an illusion and a ruse to throw the Lyceum off of his path, because he's the one that originally stole the Rod of Dragon Control, and then hid it. And that's what took our current adventurers on their path. So they're heading down this road. They knew Violet, and then they found out later on that it was actually Michael, to be this person that sent them down this road. Well, in the Antecedents campaign, there's going to be a small part where there's going to be a younger version of Michael, because there's 57 years that have overlapped, or have passed, rather. So, there's going to be mention of Grandmaster Westell, who's actually the Grandmaster of the Lyceum. He's going to call everyone forth and send them out on the adventure looking for these artifacts. And when you combine these artifacts, that's what gives you the Rod of Dragon Control. But to them, it's going to be, a test. It's going to be like, Grandmaster Westell goes to Michael and says, put me a group together and go find these artifacts. And he's going to do it. And then they're going to follow suit, and they're going to do it. So it's going to go back and it's going to tell the adventures of how this rod became to be, and then from there's going to be a darker story that unfolds. But by that time, we might fast forward to the Dragon Onslaught, or we might go back even further in time. It just really depends on the interest level, and we'll see how it goes, in which direction we go. But it would be good to show all the events of the Dragon Onslaught, all the different battles that took place, just because it's one of those things where you can hear about it during a game, and that's all fine and dandy because it adds to the lore and it gives you your own idea of it, which is not a bad thing. But going back and telling the story and letting the adventures go through, even though the outcome has already been determined, to me it still would make for a good story or good adventures. But who knows? We'll find out. But yeah, so covered clerics and healing when it comes to the TPC universe. And hopefully you guys got a little bit of ideas from this if you want to throw it out in yours. Or like I said, hop on the website, shoot me an email, leave me a comment. I'm going to post these videos on YouTube as well. And then, let me know. Let me know what you guys think, if you have any ideas, and who knows? Who knows where it goes from there. But I'm going to hop off here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Appreciate you for supporting us. And tomorrow night, Wednesday, I know you could end up watching this like on Saturday. It's like, oh, tomorrow night, Sunday. Yeah, Wednesdays is our current campaign. Starting August 8th will be our TPC antecedents. And Mondays, I'm still going to do Grimshaw's Tavern. So, yeah. Anyway, come back. See us. Hope you guys had fun. Have a good night.